everybody. It is 10 a.m. on April 20th, 2026, and we'll call the regular Technical Advisory Committee meeting of the Bismarck-Mandan MPO Metropolitan Planning Organization to order. We will start with a roll call. Tracy?
Daniel Naren.
Here.
Tim Jacobs.
Here.
Deidre Hughes.
Here.
Gabe Schell.
Here.
Loretta Marshak.
Here.
Jarek Wigness.
Here.
John Sackey.
Here.
Logan Bisey.
Here.
Mitch Flanagan. Natalie Pierce. Will Hutchings.
Here.
And Chair Ripple.
Here. Thank you. We do have a quorum. We'll proceed with anybody who may be online and would like to have their presence known for the minutes. Is there anybody online that has not been called for a roll? Okay. Continuing on, we'll go to the first order of business, which is public comment. This is restricted to the items on the current agenda or the prior TAC agenda, excluding any public hearing items. Are there any members of the public who would wish to make comment at this time, either in person or online? Calling a second time for public comment. And third call for public comment. Hearing and seeing none, public comment period is closed. We'll move on to the consent agenda. This month, there is only one item on the consent agenda, and that would be the possible approval of the minutes from our March 16th, 2026 TAC meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I'd move to approve.
I have a motion by Daniel Nairn to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Loretta.
Loretta, thank you. We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Daniel Naren.
Yes.
Tim Jacobs.
Yes.
Deidre Hughes.
Yes.
Gabe Schell.
Yes.
Loretta Marshak.
Yes.
Jarek Wigness.
Yes.
John Sackey.
Yes.
Logan Bisey.
Yes.
Will Hutchings.
Yes.
And Chair Ripple.
Yes, consent agenda is approved. Moving on to the regular agenda, the first item there is the fiscal year 2027 Recreational Trails Program applications, and Stephen Larson is going to present that application for us today. Stephen?
Thank you, Chair. So yes, the North Dakota Parks and Recreation District recently solicited for the fiscal year 27 Recreational Trails Program. They opened their solicitation on April 1st and accepted applications through April 13th. So applications for projects within the MPO area do require an MPO letter of support through Policy Board. And so this may be provided after the application window through our coordination with the Park District. So we are not asked to prioritize RTP applications, but simply to review them for consistency with our plans and processes. Assuming TAC and Policy Board approval, we will provide letters of support to the applicants for submittal to the Park District. So the MPO received notice of one application in time for consideration on this month's agenda from the Bismarck Parks and Recreation District. This is a resubmittal of a project they applied for last year. And I'll notice that I have an error on the cover page showing another application from last year. Disregard that. We're just talking about Bismarck today. So this is a proposed project from Bismarck. Again, this is a resubmittal from last year for a rehabilitation of shared use trail connections within the southern portion of Cottonwood Park. The project includes 5901 linear feet of 10-foot wide shared use trail that is currently aged and cracking, and 176 linear feet of trail that needs to be removed and replaced. The proposed project is located within one of Bismarck's most popular parks, seeing thousands of visitors annually. So it is a rehabilitation project. A total cost estimate was provided of $312,500, with a federal share requested of the maximum $250,000. So it is an 80-20 grant, but a maximum of $250,000. So Bismarck Parks is prepared to overmatch for this project. And let me see if I can go through if they have any visuals that they provided. Yes, so they have a couple of location maps that they provided with their application. The purple line here is all the trail that they would like to rehab. The blue line, I believe, is the replacement section that they need. I think Dave Mayer is online as well from Bismarck Parks, if he has anything he'd like to add.
No, I think you covered it, Stephen. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks, Stephen and Dave. Are there any questions on the application?
Yeah, this is Will with DOT. Dave, how long have you guys been applying for this project? I recall seeing it in a previous role when I was on the bike ped subcommittee. Not specifically with the RTP program, but other avenues.
If memory serves me, this is, well, I know for certain we submitted it last year. Memory serves me, I think we submitted one other time for a transportation alternatives grant 3 years ago, possibly. But other than that, I don't think we've submitted it before, since then.
Okay,
Or
thanks.
prior to that, I should say.
Any other questions or comments on the RTP application? Okay. If not, are we looking for a formal approval?
Yes, we'd be looking for a motion to recommend approval of the project as presented to carry forward to policy board.
Is there such a motion by the board?
This is Jarek. I'll move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Gabe. I will second.
Thanks, Gabe. Any discussion at all? If not, roll call, please.
Daniel Naren,
Yes.
Tim Jacobs,
Yes.
Deidre Hughes,
Yes.
Gabe Shell,
Yes.
Loretta Marshak,
Yes.
Jarek Wigness,
Yes.
John Sackey,
Yes.
Logan Bisey,
Yes.
Will Hutchings,
Yes.
and Chair Ripple.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the Bismarck Functional Class Change Request, also being presented by Stephen this morning.
Thank you, Chair. So, functionally classified roadways are eligible for federal funding, and functional class also describes a roadway's general function within the roadway network and helps to direct federal, state, and local resources to roadways. Historically, functional class changes have been processed every 10 years by the MPO after the adoption of a new urbanized area boundary after every decennial census. However, the MPO is starting to move towards what we feel would be a more effective and less burdensome process for our jurisdictions, where we will address functional class issues as they come up. You can reach out to me if you have something that you want to discuss, and we will try to process them on an as-needed basis so that we don't have to do this all at once every decade. That gets to be a little bit onerous for everybody. In this case, the city of Bismarck just completed last year an extension of East Century Avenue and 52nd Street. I do have a map of the area, which for those online, if you can see my mouse, this would be the little green spur, and then the extension kind of goes up through this area. Here, Now that the roadway is completed, the city did submit this request that they be functionally classified. Since they do both connect to an existing arterial there on Century and also existing arterial on 43rd. However, we did receive word from both Burleigh County and City of Bismarck that there are some potential issues with this request that they would like to address and discuss before proceeding further with this request. So my understanding is that this is an item that may be pulled and reconsidered in May, or depending on what is decided with those discussions. And I'll turn it over to Gabe or Tim if they have any other comments.
Chair Ripple?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, I can just add, our intention here was as we build that network out, whether it's in this particular area or, future connections of Tyler Parkway that are under construction now, or segments of 57th Avenue, or any of those section line type roadways, that we would add them to the functional classification network as needed. Not that we're anticipating a new federal aid investment or another project coming down the line shortly thereafter, but just trying to capture what is our network as far as the feds are concerned, without going through that 10-year process that Stephen indicated. So as we put this one together, I was not aware of any potential negative impacts of calling 52nd Street a functional classified roadway, but the county did express some concern with that. So I guess my motion would be to continue this item to the May meeting, which would give us some time between the county, city, and MPO staff to work through any of those potential issues and see if we can find a resolution. So that is my motion.
Great. We have a motion on the table for continuance of this item to May. Is there a second?
This is Jarek, I'll second.
Jarek, thank you. Any discussion?
Just out of curiosity, looking at this, would East Century, would the the newly constructed portion of East Century also have to be classified at the same time?
Yep, so the limits of what would be proposed to be functionally classified would be from Roosevelt Drive to 52nd Street on Century Avenue. So
Okay.
some of that was reconstruction, some of that was an extension, and then the limits of 52nd Street would be from 43rd Avenue, a functionally classified arterial, down to where it connected then to the extended Century Avenue, was the concept that we were proposing.
Okay.
Great. Any other discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Daniel Naren,
Yes.
Tim Jacobs,
Yes.
Deidre Hughes,
Yes.
Gabe Shell,
Yes.
Loretta Marshak, Loretta Marshak. Okay, Jarek Wigness,
Yes.
John Sackey,
Yes.
Logan Bisey,
Yes.
Will Hutchings,
Yes.
and Chair Ripple.
Yes. The motion to continue the item to the May meeting has been approved. Moving on then to item number 6 is the 2026 Transit Development Plan Consultant Selection. Paulette Jacobson this morning.
Thank you, Chair Ripple. Okay, last week, the MPO held interviews for the Transit Development Plan update on Monday, April 13th. We did interview 3 firms, Bolton and Mink, Houston Engineering, and SRF. The selection committee consisted of representatives from Bismarck Transit and the cities of Bismarck, Lincoln, and Mandan, and I did serve as a moderator for the interviews. All the consultants, I'd like to say, did an excellent job, and they did put together very good proposals for this project. And it was a hard decision, but the selection committee has promoted Bolton and Mink as the preferred consultant for this project. The MPO is requesting approval of Bolton and Mink as the selected consultant for this project and permission to pursue contract negotiations with them. The MPO will execute the contract after legal and NDDOT review, and I have provided a copy of the QBS letter for informational purposes. It certifies that the MPO will be compliant and have complied with NDDOT's qualification-based selection requirements for the consultant selection process, and a copy will be signed by the Policy Board Chair after tomorrow's Policy Board meeting. Any comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll be seeking a motion to approve the selection of consultant of Bolton and Mink.
Any questions for Paulette on the consultant selection or the qualification-based selection process?
Paula, how many applications did you get, proposals?
Altogether, we've received 4.
Any other questions? If not, we would be looking for a motion to approve the consultant selection of Bolton Mank for the TDP.
This is Deidre. I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Daniel.
Daniel, thank you. Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Daniel Naren,
Yes.
Tim Jacobs,
Yes.
Deidre Hughes,
Yes.
Gabe Shell,
Yes.
Loretta Marshak,
Yes.
Jarek Wigness,
Yes.
John Sackey,
Yes.
Logan Bizey,
Yes.
Will Hutchings,
Yes.
and Chair Ripple.
Yes, the motion is approved. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 7, which is the 2026 Passenger Rail Study RFP. I'll direct your attention to Exhibit RD in the packet that begins on page 31. Tracy has graciously agreed to share screen for this particular presentation. On page 31 begins the RFP for the Passenger Rail Station Siting Study to begin in 2026. The objective of this project is to identify and evaluate passenger train station corridors and potential site locations for a new passenger rail service station or stations and platforms to serve the MPO area. Alternatives provided through this study should answer 2 primary questions. Number 1, is the ideal solution to have a single station or platform location to serve all passengers in the MPO planning area, or are multiple stations a better option? Also, how do the preferred potential rail station or platform locations rank based on a matrix developed using the evaluative criteria established through the study? So keeping those 2 questions in mind, we understand that this study will be approximately 12 months in length, beginning hopefully by July of this year and concluding in July of 2027. It does have a not-to-exceed budget of $225,000. All 5 MPO jurisdiction our partners are indicated in the 2026-2027 UPWP as partners, and so the study area will include the BNSF rail corridor in the MPO planning area that extends from the very westernmost boundary of the MPO in Morton County to the MPO's easternmost boundary in Burleigh County. This RFP was developed and provided to the jurisdictional representatives for their review and comment. All comments that were received have been addressed. And if approved, we are hoping to have this posted on the North Dakota DOT website by April 24th, which would be the end of this week, with a proposal deadline of Friday, May 15th, 2026. The interviews then would occur in the week of June 8th through 11th, and consultant approval would happen at the June 15th and 16th TAC and Policy Board meetings, respectively. Upon completion and approval of all QBS processes, a formal notice to proceed could potentially occur around June 30th or the early parts of July 2026. The study is anticipated to conclude by approximately July 31st, 2027. Any questions on the timeline or budget for the study? Okay. If not, I will let you know that comments were received, and so some minor changes have been made to the document from what you see in your packet, but I'll go over those. They were primarily of a minor textual or typographical nature. However, there were 5 comments that I feel bear noting. The first of those is that the Burleigh County logo was updated on page 2 of the document. The logo, for some reason, initially did not bring through Burleigh County's name, and that has been updated, and Burleigh County's name does appear on that. Also, on page 6 of the document, which is page 36 in your packet, the SF 330 form language in the proposal requirements section was updated to provide clarification. It now reads, optional, the Federal Standard Form 330 Architect Engineer Qualifications is an NDDOT requirement and proves the consultant is pre-qualified to provide architectural, engineering, and/or planning services. Consultants will not be penalized if the SF 330 is omitted in their proposal, but the MPO will verify a current version is on file with North Dakota DOT after the consultant is selected for contract negotiations. Architect and engineering firms must have an active SF 330 on file with NDDOT before the contract can be signed. See the link for a link to the SF 330. All SF 330 forms provided to the MPO will be kept on file by the MPO and forwarded to North Dakota DOT. So we consulted with DOT on this particular item. It was felt that we just needed to add some additional language for clarification on that, as we have had some questions from consultants in the past on this particular point. Moving on to page 8 of the RFP, page 38 in the packet, we modified the local existing conditions section to include a bit of restructuring of where the description of the rail line and historic depot in Mandan occurs. Originally, this language was in the BNSF bridge paragraph, and it just didn't flow quite right. And so it was taken from that paragraph and added to the Mandan paragraph because it does apply specifically to Mandan, so it seems to make a bit more sense. But no language was added or deleted. The next change occurred to the study area map on page 10 of the RFP, or page 40 of your packet. This study area map was replaced with an updated version. What you're seeing in your packet has the ETA indicated for the city of Bismarck, and so we removed that. We also renamed the map to indicate that these are the BNSF railway within the MPO area, and that makes a little bit more sense than MPO railways. Beyond that, everything else remained the same. And then on page 13 of the document, which is page 43 in the packet, we modified the contract and project schedule very slightly to indicate a potential presentation to NDDOT in May of 2027, should they request it. That way it's on everybody's radar and we won't miss that. The basis for this RFP, it's our standard RFP format. Contains most of the standard language that we include with our RFPs. I will call out one item that is a little bit different. We did add a requirement to our final and draft report documents, and that occurs on page 13 or 43 in the packet, and it addresses website content accessibility requirements. So at the very top of the page, you will see that all deliverables, including PDFs, web pages, interactive features, and multimedia content, shall conform to WCAG 2.1 level AA success criteria available, and there is a link that is provided for anybody that is unfamiliar with that criteria. It says documents will require an accessibility check report from a tool such as PAC 2026. There are others out there. Adobe Acrobat's built-in checker or similar. we're trying to be proactive in regards to website content accessibility and looking forward in all of our future studies and projects, we will be requiring that all our final deliverables are accessible. And finally, I just want to let everybody know that public engagement will factor in very heavily with this study. There will be 2 rounds of public engagement, each consisting of outreach in both Burleigh and Morton County. This study will also coincide with outreach that is being conducted by the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority in relation to their Corridor ID project, which impacts our region. And so no doubt there will be some synergies to be gained from those 2 outreach efforts between, the MPO and also BSPRA. And we intend to fully capitalize on those. Additionally, the potential membership of the steering committee, if you looked at the steering committee list suggestions, it stands to be very robust. And the MPO understands that it will be imperative to keep our local leaders and elected officials informed and up to date with study activities and other rail-related developments in the MPO region, both from a study-led effort and also an MPO staff-led effort, so keeping that in mind. I'd be happy to stand for any questions on the RFP.
Kim, one thing I'll note is that the accessibility standards, it sounds like they granted a year on that, which is probably a sigh of relief to every jurisdiction across the state, but I still think it's good that we work toward that now, and you're putting that out there. So.
Certainly, thank you, Will. And I guess the thinking is, too, is that by the time that our studies wrap up, when they're year-long studies, those requirements will be in full swing and will be, will be held, our feet will be held to the fire on those. So, any other comments on the RFP? Gabe?
Kim, are there specific criteria that BNSF would require be met for this station siting, or is it some flexibility there? I just didn't see any of that called out specifically. That are we trying to recreate the wheel, or is there something that says, well, BNSF has this list of 25 things, and that's what it has to do, and that might mean this is the one spot in the MPO that it could even work, and this is a very short study. Can you maybe speak to that?
Well, first of all, understanding that we are looking at probably using the existing BNSF rail line. They don't have anything specific as far as station requirements. That comes typically through the Federal Railroad Administration. And yes, they do have some minimum requirements and things of that nature. Also, we think that it's very important that as far as our steering committee composition goes, that we have BNSF representation on that, as well as Amtrak. So we want either a government affairs representative or some kind of a service representative from both of those entities, so that we can address everything appropriately and adequately in that regard.
So maybe a follow-up then, have you received a commitment from those 2 entities to participate, or have we made the request yet? I'm just trying to think if they
No, we have
want to
not.
be part of this thing or not, or if they have the time or the bandwidth to be parts of 50 of these studies that might be
Right.
happening in any given
Sure.
community.
And again, the suggestion list, if you will, for the steering committee composition is very robust. We don't typically aim to have 25 or 30 members on our steering committee, and we recognize that oftentimes there are individuals, while we value their input and need that input and feedback, they can't commit to, these regularly scheduled steering committees ongoing, the meetings ongoing monthly or bi-monthly. And so that's where your focus groups tend to come in, or other ways of information sharing back and forth. And so then we can kind of work with the selected consultant in determining the best ways to conduct that outreach. But we certainly do understand that we need to have their input and engagement at some point and at regular intervals through this study. That will be imperative. Yes, as far as the time commitment, we'll will have to work on that and adjust accordingly to what they can commit to.
I think one critical element to this that Kim also mentioned already is the coincidence of the corridor ID service plan at the nationwide level with this plan. So I think if there is some interaction back and forth, hopefully BNSF is part of that committee at least, and certainly if, the federal government will be. And I think some of these decisions may be made at that level. I mean, they may just say, you're getting one station and that's just what it is. But I think, if there's coordination back and forth, we'll be able to interact in that way.
Yeah.
Can you explain a
Thank
little
you.
bit more about that? That's the first I've heard of it. A nationwide station siting study, or?
Well, the service plan for the rail line will be done at a nationwide level, and so some of that may dictate, if their scheduling only allows one station or multiple, that will probably answer that question for us.
Right, with Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority being in that Phase 2 service development plan right now, this is by far the longest phase of their corridor ID project and the most arduous because of the station determination, what they're looking at for locations and then the scheduling. They have indicated that, they originally were looking at stations perhaps every 100 miles apart, and rural communities were indicating that that's too far. And rural community representatives were saying 100 miles between stations is too far. And basically what we were hearing from BSPRA is that it's going to come down to the communities themselves and what they, how strongly they're advocating for getting these stations into their regions or their areas and what they're doing to promote that. So we want to make sure that we are well positioned to provide those recommendations when BSPR enters that phase or that part of this Phase 2 service development plan. And they felt that they were probably going to be there, they said the fall of 2027. I think that they've gotten into this phase a little bit later than what they had originally anticipated, so it could very likely be later than that. But still, that would position us very well because this study would have been concluded and we can move forward with recommendations that are based on sound principles. So, any other questions or comments on the RFP? Gabe?
Yep, so maybe circling back to my original comment, if it's not in the RFP specifically, I would hope that as that criteria is being developed and approved by the steering committee, that a lot of weight is given towards BNSF requirements, Amtrak requirements, so that we don't have to recreate a process that's already been created for
Yes.
every other community. So,
Absolutely, I
Okay, thank
agree.
you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, we would be looking for a motion to approve the or recommend approval of the RFP.
this is Gabe. I'd move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Loretta. I'd second it.
Thank you, Loretta. We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Daniel Naren,
Yes.
Tim Jacobs,
Yes.
Deidre Hughes,
Yes.
Gabe Shell,
Yes.
Loretta Marshak,
Yes.
Jarek Wignes,
Yes.
John Sackey,
Yes.
Logan Bisey,
Yes.
Will Hutchings,
Yes.
and
Yes.
Chair Ripple.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Move on to item number 8. This is the Basics Act Letter of Support. We talked about this at our meeting last month. February 9th, there was a bipartisan bill that was introduced to the U.S. House, and it was for reauthorization legislation for surface transportation. There were a lot of provisions within the bill, going through webinars and hearing some different things that were getting us pretty jazzed up as executive directors of the state, North Dakota state MPOs. And we were looking at developing a joint letter of support for the Basics Act itself. In speaking with the boards last month, after talking with TAC here, and then bringing the concepts and the provisions of the bill to policy board for further discussion, they were in support of signing on to a letter of support for the Basics Act, and I assured them that I would bring that back to them in April. So here we are. It's another month later. We've, as executive directors, have had a chance to take some more measure, I guess, as far as the Basics Act is concerned. And we would like to develop a little different approach in our support of the Basics Act. While we feel that many of the provisions are very beneficial as they're put forth in the bill, it's oftentimes hard to determine how that's really going to come down and impact the MPOs at a local or regional level. Once the bill goes through several iterations and pieces and parts are pulled from it and it's put into a final piece of legislation that's approved and then, filters down through the states for disbursement, there's so many things that can change and, present a different landscape than what was originally presented in that introduced bill. So the MPO, the other MPO directors in the state and I have had a discussion or two about taking a bit of a step back and looking at offering support for this legislation through more of an outcome-based approach rather than for specific provisions within the bill or with rather than just granting our support for the Basics Act, because we're quite certain that anything that is passed is not going to resemble what we're seeing today. Right now, there has not been any further action as far as the Basics Act in the U.S. House, other than 2 additional sponsors have joined as co-sponsors of this bill. So now there are 5. There are 2 Democrats and 3 Republicans, so it is truly a bipartisan bill. And we still do believe as MPO directors that should some of those provisions that we're eyeballing as beneficial move through, that we could stand to see some real benefit here. But it's very unlikely that this is going to be seen as a passed measure this year. We kind of feel collectively that the chances are better, given the political climate and the fact that it's an election year and the fact that this particular act has not advanced through the House at this point. We feel that it's very likely we might be existing and operating under a CR or continuing resolution come the start of the federal fiscal year. That all remains to be seen, and everything is, just speculation at this point. But what I would propose is that the other 3 directors and I be granted a bit more time to determine exactly how we want to compose this letter and make sure that we draft it in a way that doesn't really commit us too much to something that's beyond our control, but again, use that approach of kind of an outcome-based situation and supporting those outcomes that we would like to see from any future reauthorization. And in that spirit, I would be asking for a motion to continue this item to the May meeting as well. If there would be any discussion, we could certainly entertain that, or I could entertain a motion at this point. Gabe?
Kim, do you anticipate, I guess, needing to have this come back to the MPO TAC? Or is this something that you could just bring back if you think you need it? I'm just trying, walking through the process of continuing it to some future date and then,
Sure.
and maybe that's the time we make a decision, so I'm not opposed to that, but I'm just trying to play out how critical this is and relative to the other things that you're working on.
Sure. If we're going to bring it to the policy board for a signature, I would need formal action, and so I would be looking for a recommendation from the TAC as well. And I don't know if continuance to the May meeting specifically is what we're looking for here. I believe that we would have something in a month. It takes a little bit for those wheels to get turning. So 1 month to have those discussions amongst ourselves as state executive directors and then start composing and finalizing a letter of support was pretty ambitious. So now that we have had those discussions and, we are ready to work on the actual composition, I think that we're a lot closer to having something that can be approved for signing by our policy board. But yeah, I would definitely want that to come back to the TAC at whatever time that might be.
So then right now, you're just looking for a continuance into May?
That's what we'd be looking for, yes, Jarek.
Yeah, I'll move to continue this item at the May meeting.
Okay, great, thank you, Jarek. We have a motion, is there a second?
This is Gabe, I'll second.
Thank you, Gabe. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Daniel Naren,
Yes.
Tim Jacobs,
Yes.
Deidre Hughes,
Yes.
Gabe Shell,
Yes.
Loretta Marshak,
Yes.
Jarek Wigness,
Yes.
John Sackey,
Yes.
Logan Bisey,
Yes.
Will Hutchings,
Yes.
and Chair Ripple.
Yes, motion is approved to continue this item to the May meeting. Thank you all. Item number 9 on the agenda is the 2026 Fringe Area Road Master Plan update, and Stephen Larson will be giving us that update today.
Thank you, Chair Ripple. Yes, just give a brief update today on the Fringe Area Road Master Plan update as we prepare to head into the home stretch of this project. So we are planning our final round of public meetings in early May, although we still have not nailed down the precise dates and times as of yet, but keep your eyes posted on that. Based on the well-received engagement format for the first round of meetings in the winter of this year, the focus of these meetings with the public will be interactive exercises that share the planning process with participants and allow them to understand trade-offs and complexities in the transportation decision-making process. So that is ongoing. We are nearly concluded with our work with ATAC on modeling, and we will be moving into trade-offs and treatments for the hot spots that were identified in the RFP, as well as continuing to finalize kind of the 2 sets of roadways that the plan will include, one being the regionally or area-wide significant corridors that will require more, just more care and more decision-making process as the community continues to grow versus just the fringe area road network as a whole. As we get further along, there will be, obviously draft plans and maps and documents available for steering committee, jurisdictional staff, and the public to review and comment on. So that's about all I have for today. Are any questions?
Any questions for Stephen on the Fringe Area Road Master Plan update? Oh, no, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Stephen. Appreciate it. Number 10 on the agenda is the fiscal year 2026 Safe Streets and Roads for All, or SS4A, Notice of Funding Opportunity Update. That is Exhibit RF in your packet on page 71. That's just what you see as your exhibit was just kind of a quickie information sheet that was issued by the United States Department of Transportation regarding the SS4A Notice of Funding Opportunity. This announcement was made on March 26th. This particular grant opportunity does have only a 60-day application window, so all applications are due on May 26th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, which I guess translated would be 4 p.m. Central Time for us. This is something that we have been looking forward to as we recently concluded work on our safety policy study, and one or two or three of those final deliverables through that study were specifically geared towards the SS4N grant opportunities. So when we look at the SS4A grant, eligible applicants include MPOs, counties, cities, villages, towns, and tribes. The state DOTs are not eligible applicants, and so this is an excellent playing field for our communities to put in these grant applications for these qualified projects. Again, applications have to be submitted by May 26th at 4 p.m. Central Time. You do have to submit on the Valid Eval platform that is specific for these SS4A grants. A lot of folks are used to using like grants.gov. This does not use grants.gov, so you have to specifically go to the platform that is for the SS4A submittals. Right now, USDOT is accepting technical questions for anybody who is making application and needs some technical assistance on that. However, the technical questions must be submitted by April 24th, so that's later this week and wrapping up very quickly. Also, pre-application eligibility review requests must be submitted by April 24th, 2026. The funding that's available for fiscal year 2026 is $993,488,000 and change. There is a federal match of 80%, local match of 20% on this. The award details are, again, very favorable for anybody who is submitting a grant application for an implementation grant. And again, that's kind of what our safety policy study was gearing us up for, was that just in case this may be the last year for the SS4A grant program, you would all be able to use the final documents, the final report, and the leadership goal setting and commitment statement to act as your qualified documents to submit an implementation grant application. If you look at that, they are awarding up to $25 million with a minimum award of $2.5 million per application. They're expecting only 40 to 70 applications for this particular implementation phase. So again, I'm trying to encourage all of our jurisdictions for those safety projects that could qualify for an implementation grant through the SS4A. There's still some time to submit it. Also, another item to understand with this SS4A round is that there is no BCA or benefit cost analysis that's required with the application. So that's also a plus for jurisdictions. Implementation grants, the applications are 12 pages in length, and for planning and demonstration grants, which you do not need an action plan for, those are 2 to 3 pages in length, and they're expecting a lot of submissions for those, 400 to 700 applications coming in potentially. But again, we do have the action plan that's in place. That would be the final report for our safety policy study, the leadership goal setting and commitment, which is our Vision Zero policy basically, and then everything that's been outlined in the study for that. So I've sent several emails encouraging jurisdictions to participate in webinars. Most of the webinars that are on the exhibit in the packet have concluded, but you can also use a link that's on the bottom of page 2 in that exhibit and sign up for future emails. And so if any updates come out or are issued by the USDOT in regards to the SS4A, you'll be on the list for those. And I'd encourage you to definitely take advantage of that. Any questions on the SS4A? No? All right, well, I'm really excited and hoping that somebody's going to submit and tell us your stories when you do, so. All right, moving on to number 11 on the agenda is the Passenger Rail Roundtable Discussion Update. Actually, this is about the first that you're hearing of this, I think, at the TAC. Policy Board has directed the MPO to reach out to principals in communities along the existing BNSF rail corridor in North Dakota to start discussions about the restoration of passenger rail in our state and what implications that might bring to those communities adjacent to the rail line. And so I've reached out to mayors and commissioners and city administrators in communities all the way from Valley City in the east, Valley City, Jamestown, of course, all of our Bismarck-Mandan MPO jurisdictional partners, and then, of course, Dickinson, Medora, and Beach. We're trying to get a roundtable discussion set up so that we can find out what the restoration of passenger rail in North Dakota might entail for all of these communities, what we're looking to gain from it, what we expect to see, maybe some challenges. This will actually be kind of a short introductory 2-hour meeting where we kind of get to know who all is involved with each community and maybe identify some ways of moving forward with future discussions. So hopefully we'll have a poll out we have a poll out currently, and we'll have enough responses to send the invites out tomorrow, or we're looking at having this meeting by May 11th. On May 12th, the Bismarck-Mandan EDC has got a local issues committee that meets, and I would like to bring the topic of passenger rail in the Bismarck-Mandan MPO area to their attention and see if we can't get their sponsorship for our efforts in that regard. So that will be on May 12th. It would be good to have the North Dakota passenger rail community discussion take place in advance of that, so I could bring that information to them. But we'll see how that shakes out, and I'll continue to bring future updates to this board. Any questions? Okay. Number 12, Americans with Disabilities Act, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So we just talked about this very briefly in regards to the passenger rail RFP and our final products and reports and documents being completely accessible. So that when we do put that content on our website, we can ensure that we are being compliant with these particular guidelines. Now, what are these guidelines? These are guidelines that were actually they were released on April 24th of 2024 by the Department of Justice, and it was, they were regulations as part of the Title II ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. And it's guidance that requires that all website content be accessible to those with disabilities. So there's been a lot of chatter about this lately. It's been a hot topic because we are now nearing a deadline of April 26th, 2026, or I'm sorry, April 24th, 2026, so just later this week, whereby we were to have compliant websites established and implemented. And while many of our communities have been working towards that, those of us with populations of 50,000 or more, knowing that this deadline has been approaching, perhaps didn't know exactly what all that entailed regarding new documents, existing documents on our websites, our archival options, just a whole gamut of things that our eyes kind of have recently been open to. I will let you know that on behalf of the MPO, we've been working really hard to make sure that all of our documentation moving forward, so anything that's being produced right now and then in the future will be accessible for website posting. We're also working, the city of Bismarck has been working in the background on our behalf with their website, and they have contracted for a service that will basically convert our existing documents that are not accessible into an HTML accessible document. So it would enable a website viewer to activate an accessibility feature that would make even our inaccessible documents accessible. So we're very grateful that the city has taken this proactive approach and been working on this kind of behind the curtain to make sure that we are ready for this. We just hot off the press got news last Friday, that there is an interim final rule that has been released regarding the WCAG regulations, perhaps extending the deadline by 1 year. So that would put our deadline for the MPO and for our larger cities of over 50,000 to April 24th, 2027. I am not sure if that is final.
Yeah.
Maybe Will has a perspective on that.
Yeah, it's obviously, we're scrambling at the state with this as well. The ITD, the Information Technology Department at the state, is looking into that just to make sure that that's for sure. We're still marching forward with trying to bring ours up to speed and make sure we're fully compliant. A lot of the forms and everything we have up on our website have been replaced with new ones. So you might have a link to one that you previously used that's going to be broken. You have to find the new one by navigating on the website. But I believe that it is probably true that it's going to be extended a year, just knowing how the impacts and everyone's kind of like being blindsided by the amount of work that this involves. So.
Sure. Thanks, Will. I appreciate that. And just to kind of piggyback on your comment as well, it's a possibility that folks might jump onto the MPO website and find a broken link here or something that doesn't seem like it's working, and that may be partially due to some of the updates that we're performing. So, if you ever do encounter something like that, please reach out to us and let us know. We would appreciate hearing about that. Any other comments? Danielle?
Just wanted to confirm, while we were meeting, I did check, and in the Federal Register, the interim did get extended for 1 year.
They did post
so
it.
that's-
Okay, great. It's official then. Yeah, well, a collective sigh of relief. It buys us a little extra time, but again, I think that what we've done very recently in regards to kind of stepping up our game and making sure that we're compliant, we'll just kind of continue in that mode because, that will ensure that we're set up pretty well for that 2027 deadline then. Any other comments on that?
Kim, this is Deidre. You mentioned that the city is contracting with the service. Do you have the name of the service that they're contracting with?
Yeah, it's actually through Civic Plus, and it's called Doc Access.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're kind of struggling here as well because obviously we have so much archived information on our website, and it's been
Right.
a lot for us to do in-house. So I appreciate that.
Yes, and there are some exceptions or some provisions made in the final rule for archived documents, and so that might bear a little more research on your part, whereby you don't have to update everything. There is an option. Some things can be archived in an inaccessible mode. But I think a person would have to be very careful and make sure your research is thorough so that those documents are meeting the requirements for that.
Thank you.
Deidre, if you want, I know the state has some resources too of different assistance that you can use on your website to search for and bring it up to date. So either I or Becky might be able to help you with that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay. Well, if not, it is time to start hearing about all our roadway projects. And it's going to be summer today, apparently. So why don't we start with, Gabe, you want to start with Bismarck?
Sure. I guess for the purpose of federal aid investment, from racking my brain here, I think we only have 2 projects that would have appeared on the STIP that we are the lead. Both of them are HSIP or highway safety improvement type projects. One is a signal replacement and left turn modifications at the intersection of Century Avenue and 19th Street. And the other is a rectangular rapid flash beacon at the intersection of Jericho Road and Centennial Road. Both of those are under contract, and we'll wait for weather to get nicer before we really start digging into the ground and doing any work. But those are the 2 I'll be providing updates on through the construction season.
Sounds good. Thanks, Gabe. What's going on in Mandan, Jarek?
The 2 that come to mind for me are Urban Grants Program Project, First Street Reconstruction. It's phase 1 of our 3-phase downtown improvement project. We have a pre-construction meeting, I think, scheduled for this week. And we should be starting construction shortly after that. The other one that will be technically active by the end of the year will be our 8th Avenue Northwest and 27th Street reconstruction project. This is just north and west of the new high school over in Mandan. We'll be starting with our public engagement on that in May. So we'll start. People should start hearing about that fairly soon.
Okay. I'm looking forward to hearing about that public engagement. Thanks, Jarek. Loretta, anything happening out in Lincoln?
We have lots of things going on, but nothing you can see
Okay.
is how I'm going to describe it. We're really working on building their CIP program, and as part of that, we have a number of studies that we're working on. So we're looking forward to getting a schedule set up and likely having a number of projects kick off next year.
Okay. Thank you, Loretta. Moving into the counties, John, anything going on out in Morton County yet?
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. It's still early. How about Tim? Anything in Burley County that you can apprise us on?
Yeah, Burley County, we got a flex funding grant to do Centennial Drive or Centennial Road from Jericho to 83. So we're doing a microsurface on that, and then some pavement rehabilitation on 71st, just from Aleutian Drive to Centennial. So and we're also adding some lighting to that intersection too. So that'll be a decent project for us.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tim. Logan, what's going on for district?
Yeah, our three big projects are kind of all going full bore now. So 161 exit there, they're going to be putting up some traffic control so they can begin paving the temporary ramp, and then switch that temporary ramp later, and then start construction the new permanent southeast ramp that they're doing there. So that's where they're at. Memorial Highway Phase 1, they were pouring concrete today. I think got an 800-foot stretch set up to pave. They finished sanitary and are going to begin working on water main. So that project's moving right along already. And then Phase 2, we began last week. The traffic control set up at the Main Street intersection of Memorial Highway. They're doing removals this week. They'll remove the signal and start using that temporary span wire signal they have set up. And then hopefully pouring the concrete for that intersection next week. And then setting up traffic control underneath the railroad bridge structure near that intersection to do the single slope barrier wall and then some path work right under there. So the path will be closed there next week.
Okay, just for the week then?
It'll be closed for a while, probably till July. But,
Till July, okay.
Yeah, end of June.
All right, thank you. All right. Well, it's going to start ramping up here, so appreciate the updates. Any other business? Okay, I guess I had one item of other business. North Dakota DOT did provide us on April 14th the CPG distribution for 2027. These are the estimated amounts for our consolidated planning grant that's going to get us through the year of 2027. We did receive an additional little over $36,000, and that was due to 2024 North Dakota FTA 5304 funds that we really weren't anticipating. So it was kind of like opening up a Christmas gift on, April 14th. I'm never going to turn away a little bit of unanticipated funding. So we will work that additional $36,000 into our budget for 2027. The MPO staff will be kind of finalizing what we've talked about for our studies. And of course, we're beginning our development of our 27-28 UPWP. So now is the time when we need to finalize those studies and get the appropriate monies allocated towards each of them and get things rolling. So you all, as jurisdictional representatives, will be seeing kind of a draft final studies list. I'll be looking for kind of a stamp of approval on that from you before we bring things forward through the boards. Any other items for the good of the order under business? Okay, if not, meeting adjourned. Y'all have a great week.